education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
All right, welcome. Glad you are with us. We're going to be joined by Aaron Levarco out of Israel, Leo Holman. We have breaking news here, folks. We have breaking news that Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is calling 800 generals and admirals to a meeting. 800. I think this is kind of unprecedented. Now, what do you think is going on with this? Particularly after the troubling Truth Social post by President Trump about we're going to fund NATO and then go do what they want with these weapons with Venezuela, with Ukraine and their war against Russia, and maybe Ukraine should take back land and even more. That Russia's a paper tiger, which I think was a very dangerous Truth Social post. Many other folks think so, David Pine and others. So what's going on now? I don't know. We're going to talk about it. How many of you are aware of the number of people on social media that are talking about the fact that the late night shows don't offer equal time? They only offer one opinion. Did you guys see folks last week complaining about that? Guys, do we have any tweets or stuff we can show? Because I know I saw it. They're looking. Can I just tell you, the right sometimes, I think their discernment on a scale of 1 to 10 goes to about a 2. I don't think they realize sometimes when they're being played. I think sometimes the left does things to gaslight the right, so the right will say things they shouldn't be saying that can be used as justification to push leftist policies, and they get the right then to do it. And that's being generous. Because it may be that some of the people on the right are not actually conservatives after all. They're not constitutionalists. They're Republicans. They're corporatists. Because last week I heard people saying things that is not consistent with our constitutional beliefs and the understanding that this can cut both ways. First one, of course, was Pam Bondi talking about hate crimes for people that I know were doing disgusting things and saying disgusting things online following the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We all find that disgusting if you're a human being with a halfway calculated conscience toward truth. But we don't want to go around prosecuting people for hate crimes for speech that's not a threat, terroristic threat, etc. Incitement. But she said it. And we've been warning, of course, about hate speech laws here for over 20 plus years. Something we warned about for a long time was also this idea of equal time. Equal time. Last night on the TV show, I remembered something during my conversation with attorney Nicole Pearson. I remembered something, and while she was talking, I went and looked it up and showed you, the audience, and talked to them about it. I want to remind you, because when we have so-called conservatives on social media saying, well, Jimmy Kimmel only gives one viewpoint, one opinion. He doesn't offer the alternative view. He doesn't interview conservatives. They're playing the equal time agenda, which is very dangerous. Who do we have saying this, Logan? I see you got me a screenshot. That's Brendan Carr, the FCC director. The chairman. Did you mark that for me? Put that into bookmark. And because that's funny you found that, because I have another one from him. It's about The View. That's fine. It's showing exactly what we're talking about. All right, you put it in a bookmark. All right, here we go. Here's what he said. Fox News reported it. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr says it might be worthwhile to investigate whether ABC's The View is violating broadcast rules following Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. Fox News reports that Carr argued that the left-leaning talk show could be violating the commission's equal time rule, which requires broadcasters to provide equal opportunity to all political candidates except for a bona fide news show. Well, are we now going to classify The View as a political show that needs to offer equal time? Because that's a slippery slope. We better be very careful. Here he is himself, back in 2024. Brendan Carr, FCC. He's replying to this. In the 2016 cycle, President Obama's FCC chair made it clear that the agency would enforce equal time rule when candidate Trump went on Saturday Night Live. Now, I understand there are rules for candidates. And if one candidate gets a certain amount of time, the other candidate should be offered the same thing. But we better be careful when we start classifying speech of hosts or guests as political speech and therefore should be offered equal time. Because it's not long before they say, well, what you're saying, Brandon House, on Christian radio and TV is political speech. Therefore, you have to offer equal time. And it was a few years ago, we warned about this idea of equal time and what it would do to talk radio, but more importantly, Christian radio, Christian TV. It would be bad enough if a conservative talk show on multiple platforms, even one local show, was forced to give equal time to the opposing view, particularly when the network would have to, according to what we were reading back then, pay for that equal time. So if you're a host who you're paying to produce a show and put out content as a drive time show and sell advertising in, you now got to offer equal time to the opposing view who's going to pay for that airtime. But it gets even worse. Do you want a Christian network like we're on to have to offer equal time to the LGBTQ crowd, the trans crowd, the globalist crowd, the new age, cosmic humanist, occult crowd, the open borders crowd, the Marxist, the Islamist? Do we have to offer them equal time to oppose what I'm saying? Most people listening to this network don't want to hear that because they're aligning their views with the Bible and the Constitution and absolute truth. And they don't want to listen to that. And they don't want to fund that. They don't want to support that. And Christian radio and TV ought to have the freedom to program according to their Christian worldview and biblical convictions. So I think conservatives might want to get off their high horse and realize nobody's watching Jimmy Kimmel. Nobody's really watching these shows. Who cares? But they're pretty soon going to be watching and listening to conservative radio and TV. That is, your audience is going to be listening to the left. So if you want to give your audience, your supporters, your broadcast friends, if you want to give them to the left so they can be indoctrinated, irritated, vilified by the left, then you guys keep pushing this idea on the right. Because right now, I don't care if Jimmy Kimmel can get on there and interview all of his liberal buddies with no equal time. Nobody's watching. But I don't want to fall into the equal time game. We don't do equal time here. Why should Jimmy have to do equal time? Let the market decide. Free speech, broadcast standards. So we are talking now about hate speech for speech that we find offensive. Well, that's what the right's now saying, Pam Bondi. Now we have people talking about equal time for political views. Well, be very careful how you define political views, because one man's political views is another man's biblical convictions. Last night, I showed this on TV. In 2009, I said to my guest, Nicole, I think it was Cass Sunstein that came up with the idea of putting sidewalks on websites. I think that was Cass Sunstein in the Obama administration. So I went while she was talking and looked it up, found an article, and sure enough, found an article. Yep, that's right. Cass Sunstein proposed in his book, Republic.com, this idea of sidewalks. So you would have to give a public sidewalk, if you will, on your website for the left, the crazies, the loons, to come on there and spew their lies, their propaganda, their perversion on your website. So let's say you go to my website, Worldview Tube, there'd have to be a section there going down the page where they could come in, post whatever they wanted, say whatever they wanted, link whatever they wanted, talk however they wanted, and I would have to pay for that. I'd have to allow them to irritate my visitors, my supporters, and to confuse new people who are coming to learn, who are now being confused by the lies of the Marxist, the communist, the Islamist. Why should I work for 35 years to build a loyal following, up to 1 million views a day now, to turn it over to the left, the Marxist, the Islamist, for them to harvest my 35 years of hard work, to tell their lies to my people, my supporters, my donors, my friends? I shouldn't have to do that. Go out and build your own audience. But here's the truth. You guys can't. Liberal talk radio, that didn't make it. Nobody wants to tune in and hear it. And apparently Jimmy Kimmel, other than when he came back with his little show the other night, his numbers are so horrible that some of these shows, we're told, are losing millions of dollars. That's the free market. Let them lose millions. Does ABC or any of them want to lose millions? Let them lose millions. Eventually, maybe they'll go out of business. But we don't turn into the left and start crying that we're not getting equal opinions and ideas out there. Unless, of course, you're really quite ignorant, and therefore you should get off radio, TV, social media. You should get out of the Trump administration if you're that dense. Or two, you're actually not really a conservative and a constitutionalist, and you've been sent in posing as the right to say these things, to give fodder to the left, so the next time around they can say, well, wait a minute, Pam Bondi was for this. Well, wait a minute, the last FCC chairman was for this. And now the right and the left have leaders all calling for the destruction of free market principles. Don't be shocked if that's not what's going on. We'll be right back with Aaron and Leah with breaking news. We have a big announcement, folks. It's called Bella Melt. In the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. So what it's going to do best is it's going to reduce your sugar cravings or any other cravings you have in your body. It's going to suppress that appetite. But where Melissa got the most benefit, I think, over the last week was the L-carnitine. The L-carnitine tells your mitochondria, this is where you make, we talked about it before, this is where you produce energy in your cells. It actually tells those mitochondria to burn fat for fuel.
MelissaHouseBG.com just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action. All right, welcome back, guys. We've got breaking news. As you know, we have Pete Hegseth calling in 800 generals and admirals for an emergency meeting, apparently. We also now have Polymarket saying, breaking news, Russian ambassador warns World War III will start if NATO shoots down Russian planes invading their airspace. Leading report says NATO has declared war against Russia, claims Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Joining me now is Aaron Lavarco, on the ground in Israel, our reporter, and Leo Holman, senior producer of our nightly newscast, Worldview Report. Guys, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, Brandon.
Hi, Leo. Hello.
Hi, guys. All right, tell me, Leo, let's go to you. What is going on with this 800 generals and admirals being called into a meeting with the new Secretary of War, which is really interesting. They just changed the name of that department while they're clearly now egging for war.
100%. Yes, I've been trying to get that through the thick skulls, as you kind of said in your monologue as well, of certain conservatives who take everything at face value. They don't see the important symbolism going on. All of this is important. And this is a top secret meeting. Okay. We have not been told the topics that will be discussed, but it has been confirmed by the Defense Department public relations staff that the meeting will take place at Quantico, Virginia next Tuesday, and it will involve all Army generals of the rank of brigadier general and above, and their equivalents in the Navy. And the timing, I think, is very, very important. President Trump, as you noted, just came out with this statement indicating a huge swing in his view of the Ukraine-Russia war has taken place. The huge shift in his opinion took place after, I think this is important, after he met with the tech bros at the White House 2 weeks ago, and then met with King Charles and the tech bros again in London just last week. And this would include the likes of Palantir and companies like that who are heavily involved in the Russia-Ukraine war. And I've been researching that today, Brandon, and it is just unbelievable what Palantir is involved in. They are involved in a warp speed model program for drone warfare, in which they have partnered with another company called Red Cat. Red Cat is a California-based designer and manufacturer of killer military drones, drones of all sizes, from the smallest ones that can fit in a rucksack of a soldier to, very large drones. And the goal is to manufacture 14,000 of them for Ukraine in very short order, using the principles learned during Operation Warp Speed in COVID. You truly can't make this up. I believe Washington has decided to go to war with Russia. I don't know the timing of it. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but Washington has decided to go to war with the world's largest owner of nuclear weapons, thinking that we can outmaneuver them on the edges with our technology and perhaps corner them into some sort of surrender, perhaps before it gets to the nuclear stage. I don't know what they're thinking, but I do know it involves technology.
Well, I'll tell you, you and I both know, as much as I interviewed the late Dr. Peter Vincent Pry, former CIA analyst, whose radio show I produced every week, whose TV show I produced, who sat at this very, very desk. And if you're a member of my vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, folks, you should go in there and watch every Peter Pry show you can get your hands on, because he's one of the most brilliant men in the area of history, and his degrees, his PhDs, EMP, cyber attacks, nuclear weapons. Brilliant man. I'm sorry he passed away. We need him now. You should go watch every one of them, because he was telling Americans and leaders that you need to be making peace with Russia, not provoking them. You don't understand what they can do to us. You don't understand how they're on their 5th and 6th generation warfare technology, and we're still trying to catch up. You don't understand their ability to take down our power grid And the man that took over, David Pine, who's a regular here, is saying the same thing. So I don't understand. Are these guys so unaware of the, and people will call in and say, well, the U.S. military is so big, it's so bad. You don't understand. We're the greatest. No. Dr. Peter Vincent Pry and many others would come on here and talk about how far behind we were with testing nuclear weapons, with so many things that we don't have, that Russia has. And we also have a tendency to not understand, many Americans, Russia and their first strike doctrine. Now, we have in the last 42 minutes a post being put up now that is the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. Listen to what he's saying, folks.
Working on the basis of principles enshrined in the UN Charter, taken in full comprehensively with due regard how they're interrelated, is a way of laying the groundwork for the progressive development of all states without exception, large and small. Refusing to comply with the Charter's principles is an expression of neocolonial ambitions, leading to the rise of global instability, multiplication of regional conflicts. A key example of this is the Ukraine crisis, which was provoked by the collective West. And we also, of course, know the history of colonialism in Africa, where borders were drawn up arbitrarily without any concern for nationality confession. And back to Ukraine, NATO and the EU have basically declared war on my country and are partaking it directly.
All right. There he just said it. Ukraine and NATO.
NATO and the EU have basically declared war on my country.
Yeah. Let's bring in.
Yeah,
go ahead, Leo.
They are effectively seeing this transformation from President Trump as a de facto declaration of war, and that's a very, very dangerous scenario. If we back Russia into a corner, and let's say that the neocons and the technocrats are correct, and we indeed have this ace in the hole called Palantir and associated companies who give us some sort of technological edge in terms of, Palantir has said, I think this was a quote was attributed to Alex Karp, but don't hold me to that modern warfare is about more than just firepower, that it's about technology, intelligence, and speed of action. And this is where Palantir excels, where it gets the correct data on targeting and other in the battlefield data to the appropriate military sources instantly. Okay. And so they're able to they're given actionable intelligence in a matter of minutes that would, without their programs, would take days or weeks to gather up. And this is the advantage that Washington hopes to use against Russia under this Palantir philosophy that modern warfare is about more than just firepower. It's about intelligence and speed of action. However, I think they could be miscalculating that firepower does still mean something in 2025. I hope we don't learn the hard way that if Russia feels somehow they already feel geographically pushed into a corner with the expansion of NATO. But something more dangerous could be if they feel digitally or technologically backed into a corner because of this new ace in the hole technology provided by Palantir, that they decide the only way out, the only way to preserve their territorial integrity, their sovereignty, and the regime of Vladimir Putin is to use that firepower, good old-fashioned firepower, nuclear weapons, or even massive conventional missiles fired at Western targets. We could wake up one morning, if this indeed happens, and to learn that London, Paris, Berlin, possibly even New York or Washington have been hit by devastating Russian missiles. I hope it doesn't come to this, But Washington seems to be playing with fire, Washington and London, and think that they can actually do a regime change in Russia by use of superior technology.
Well, let's not forget, thank you, Leo. Let's not forget Russia has technology that we have 4 guys with 4 stars on their shoulder admitting under testimony before Congress, we don't have an answer for that yet. Okay, we're working on getting that technology, but we don't have that technology yet. And I'm talking about some of their rockets that allow them to carry multiple warheads that can break off, and with AI have pre-programmed targets that each of those multiple warheads, 10, 12 plus warheads, can break off and go to their targets. And if the target is missed and it's a primary target, the next rocket in line can cancel its package ordnance and go to the preferred priority target. And that this can take off, be shot off, and then once it gets up into the atmosphere, it skips. So it's not going on a traditional trajectory where our satellites pick it up, and based on that can immediately the computers calculate the trajectory and where it's going to go. Because once this rocket gets up into the atmosphere and it releases this warhead, it can skip. And Dr. Peter Price said it can go stealth. And now you're cutting down the minutes that a president has to give the orders to respond. And it can get really, really close. And we did a whole show on this with Colonel Rob Manus that's in the vault last year, who was one of the 3 men that wrote the black book that goes with the nuclear football. And he described in great detail what has to happen and how quick it has to happen. A president doesn't have much time, even with the traditional weaponry. But you add in the new weaponry that can go stealth for many, many minutes, and then multiple warheads. And yet I've got 4-star generals on video saying, we're working on an answer to that, but we don't even have that technology now. How many Americans know what I just said, Leo?
Not many. I mean, I'm starting to think that the U.S. government may also have weapons, that we're not aware of at this point, that have never been. I mean, both Russia and China and the United States have weapons that have not been unveiled and declared to the world, right? And Peter Pry has been gone now for over 2 years. So we don't know what's happened between then and now. But I think we've entered a very dangerous era. President Trump is calling it a new golden age. I would call it a new dire age, an age of dire warfare. Jesus said that in the last days we would hear about wars, rumors of wars, and what? Nations rising against nations and kingdoms rising against kingdoms. And what I see going on right now are kingdoms in conflict. That was once the topic of a book by Chuck Colson. But
yep, hold right there. Hold right there. Also, let's not forget, we don't have one mobile ICBM. Russia has many. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at www.foundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
All right, welcome back. Glad you are with us. Let's bring in Aaron Lavarco from Israel Live. Here's a headline today. Iran and Russia to sign documents on building new nuclear reactors in Iran. That's up at worldviewreport.com, your daily aggregated news site. All right, Aaron, you've been patiently sitting there listening. What do you make of what we're talking about? And Iran and Russia to sign documents on building new nuclear reactors in Iran.
Well, this is massive news. The call for 800 generals to be called up. This is, something I don't think we've seen in decades. We've been watching Russian planes flying over European nations' territories, Poland, Latvia, I believe. What are they doing, Brandon? What are they doing, Leo? What are they doing flying over? Having a Sunday picnic from the sky? Are they not provoking? Well, now I see this as a NATO issue. I see, of course, America are the leaders, but have you been hearing Putin in a derogatory way attack the West? He is totally against the West, and my concern is that he's going to bring other nations into a coalition, that he's got a few trumps up his sleeve, whether it be China, whether it be Turkey, or some of the Kazakhstan or these other nations in that bloc. That's my concern. And I think this call up for these 800 generals, I don't know, could it be a psychological move to flex a little bit of muscle? Obviously, Donald Trump knows about this. He's the alpha. He doesn't want, he needs to make that stand as kind of the leader of the NATO nations. So I think we're a long way from that first missile being fired. On the other hand, it could spiral very, very fast. Putin, I do believe Washington is playing with fire, but so is Putin. So is Putin. He knows what's at stake here. He knows that it's not just America, it's the NATO nations as well. But wow, this could get very, very serious. It's quite alarming.
We're now hearing one reporter saying that a senior Pentagon correspondent says that in 30 years of covering the U.S. military, he has never seen anything like this and warns we could be on the brink of war. That the calling up of 800 generals and admirals.
If I could just add some clarification to what Aaron was saying. I mean, you have to look at the larger context. You say Putin is provoking. What would your nation do, or any nation, if Donald Trump told them that they were not allowed to sell their main commercial products to any nation? This is what's going on. Trump has told China, India, now today he's telling Turkey, yesterday he's been harping on the EU. All of the main buyers of Russian oil are being told by Donald Trump they have to stop buying that oil or they will face secondary sanctions from the United States. Basically, he is dictating to a fellow sovereign nation who they can and cannot sell their oil to. Imagine if some country did that to Israel, Aaron. Would they be a little bit touchy right now? Would they be a little bit on edge when they see their entire economy under attack by a foreign third-party country who thinks they can dictate what goods and services can be exported and imported from that country? I mean, this is serious, unprecedented stuff. I have never seen one superpower try to dictate to another what products it can or cannot sell to what country.
And we're also hearing now that Europeans privately tell Russia that they're ready to down jets. And by Europeans, you're talking about a lot of those loudmouths in NATO that have been wanting to go to war for a very long time, and who President Trump promised us, you know, I'm going to fix this and we're not going to go to war. We're going to make peace. We're going to get along. But it seems like since he came back from meeting with King Charlie, he's taking, you know, and I have to wonder again, how much of the globalist, a Eurocentric world government that's rising, and I think that fits in with Bible prophecy, how much of this is Donald Trump having his mind changed after coming back from Europe, Leo?
Well, the timing, I always say timing is everything. And he did a complete about face when he came back from the UK and met with King Charles and the CEOs of the world's largest tech companies. After having previously met with the CEOs at the White House, they end up in the picture again at 10 Downing Street when he's meeting with the British officials. So there's something up here when he's meeting with corporate power brokers twice in a span of 2 weeks. And then he flips in his entire outlook on Russia from treating Russia and Ukraine as equals, and he's the neutral broker, to now coming down not only on Ukraine's side, but saying Ukraine has the ability, which he knows is not true, to take back all of its territories from Russia and then some, and actually take extra territory from Russia. That is insane. And the only way that can happen is if Donald Trump is aware that all of NATO is now on board for war with Russia. It's only through that type of firepower that Putin could be driven out of Ukraine and even have to defend his own soil. And so, with that kind of rhetoric out there, there is nothing that has come out of Putin's mouth that is that inflammatory on the other side.
And let me bring this in real quick.
How you look at it.
Axios reports Russian officials must end the war or find bomb shelters. That's what Zelensky says. He claims he's been talking to President Trump, and so I guess after his little conversations, he starts spouting his mouth off like this. Russian officials must end the war or find bomb shelters. All right, I want to play a real quick clip of Peter Pry. We'll get a response from both of you. And I want to talk about the West Bank, as it's derogatorily called. It's something President Trump has said, which I think, I'm not sure if he's being consistent with past statements or not, but I found these a little concerning. I want to see what Aaron thinks. But listen to my friend from this very news desk, the former CIA analyst, Dr. Peter Vincent Pry. Listen to this.
Another super weapon they have is the Avant-Garde, which is a hypersonic reentry vehicle that can be carried by any of their ICBMs. A large number of them could be carried by the Sarmat or the Satan II, and it will be maneuverable so it can penetrate our national missile defenses, although it doesn't need that maneuverability because our national missile defenses were never designed with the sophistication to intercept Russian weapons anyway. But in their paranoia, they've designed it to penetrate our national missile defense, or perhaps that's just disinformation, because they want to mislead us about why it has that maneuverability. You're always saying, well, the Avant-Garde has maneuverability to get through our missile shield. But in reality, this also gives it unprecedented accuracy, making it one of the most effective first strike weapons they've ever had, because the ability to have a maneuvering warhead not only enables you to penetrate our national missile defenses as they currently exist, but it would enable you to have extraordinarily precise accuracy against our hard targets like our missile silos. An avant-garde maneuvering warhead, might be able to strike the silo right on its lid, or get so close to the silo that you don't even need a nuclear weapon in order to destroy it. It could do it perhaps with a kinetic kill, or with a very low yield clean warhead, so that it would limit the amount of fallout and radioactive fallout that would come, and limit the damage to our civilian population. So you could have a very clean surgical nuclear first strike and win a nuclear war with very little risk of U.S. retaliation against their cities, because we would have the damage to our own population would be negligible. That could be the purpose of the avant-garde.
Wow. There you go. All right, let me go a little bit more to the Middle East here. President Trump, he came out and said that he is planning to unveil a Gaza ceasefire outline with the Arabs. Now, is Netanyahu, who I think is supposed to be in D.C. today, is he behind this idea of a ceasefire with the Arabs, or is he wanting to finish this up, keep going? Aaron?
Okay, well, we're going to find out a lot in the next few days, Brennan. Netanyahu is going to be meeting, firstly, tomorrow, big speech by Netanyahu to the United Nations. That's going to, I guarantee he's going to come out all gloves fighting. He's going to be speaking out against the nations who voted for a Palestinian state. What he says about the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria.
Let me show that headline. Trump promises Arab leaders he won't let Israel annex the West Bank. Of course, that's the derogatory term. That's Judea and Samaria. Okay, now we've shown the headline.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I saw that. And even our foreign minister to the United Nations, Gideon Saar, he said, we are not planning on annexing Palestinian-controlled areas of the West Bank. Now, let me explain. Judea and Samaria, in 1991, at the Oslo Peace Accords, Israel handed over specific areas to the Palestinian Authority. Jericho, Bethlehem, Ramallah, Al-Fahim, places like this. It is no longer under Israel's sovereign control. So any talk about us annexing those places, Gideon Saar said, no, we're not at all going to be doing that. But what he did say is he said, when Prime Minister Netanyahu comes back from Washington, we will discuss enforcing Israeli law into some of the Jewish areas. These are called settlements, not cities, but settlements. So what will that mean? It will mean any future two-state solution where we have implemented Israeli law will be almost impossible to take over. So basically to put it into layman's terms, they're just putting down deeper roots into some of the Jewish controlled areas in Judea and Samaria, but not touching the Palestinian controlled area. That's the latest that I've been hearing. And like we just saw, Trump is putting pressure. Now, the reason why Trump's doing that, Brandon, in my opinion, is he's under incredible pressure by these Muslim nations. Honestly, what's going on, there's so many things from so many directions that is just of magnitude proportion, the consequences of the decisions. What's happening in New York and Washington are massive. It's a big weekend ahead of us, and we need to pray for President Trump. We need to pray for Benjamin Netanyahu, that they don't give in to pressure. That's why the Lord said to Joshua, be strong and courageous.
Hold right there. We'll be right back with more, including what about the report last Friday to be concerned about terrorist attacks?
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
All right, welcome back. Leo, I wonder what all of this has, if anything, to do with the fact that we just had a report by the DNI last Friday to be concerned about terrorist attacks, multiple shooters hitting at one time, et cetera, stuff we've been talking about here now for a long time. Sarah Carter has been talking about it. You've been talking about it. I've been talking about it. David Pine's been talking about it. And now the government finally puts this out. And we have that combined with the other concerns we have about who's here, who's already here. And then you add this to what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. And then, of course, we could start talking about some of these other places that are of concern that we could get dragged into, like the Middle East, Israel, and Iran. Do you think there's something there? Well, obviously, there's something they're not telling us. But do you think there's something more big at play here, particularly when we add in that the Secret Service announced yesterday these SIM servers and SIM cards that can disrupt telecommunications and even send out false or anonymous threats? Because we've warned about the fact that if you cannot have first responders talking, and remember that DNI report Friday was particularly geared toward first responders in part. But if you can't communicate during a major crisis, you got a big problem. But if you can send out anonymous threats, you can target certain things, a synagogue, a school, a church, multiple schools, right? And put threats against them, then basically swatting, right? And then all of your first responders head that direction, only to find out they were false and the attack was actually taking place across town. And now they got to turn around and go back the other direction. And as I think one of our guests warned, then they do an attack in the county next to that. And then the first responders that responded to the first attack from that second county, they were already in the first county to back them up. But then the next attack comes in the second county. And now those first responders that are over in the first county have to try to get back over to the second county. And then the third county over or above or below starts responding to the second county to help them. And then they get a terrorist attack. And now all of a sudden, not only can your first responders not communicate, but they can't keep up. And I just find this server, and they don't know, they haven't arrested anybody. So they think some foreign government's involved, but they don't know who. I find that very interesting that was discovered and revealed to us this week in the midst of all the other things and all the gray terror we've been seeing. Railroads, railroad cars going off the track, food plants burning up. I mean, all that stuff that's been going on, we've been saying that this is probably gray terror, what you do to a country's infrastructure before war. Now you add this with the Secret Service announcement. What do you make?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that something like that was even made public, Brandon.
Me too.
Especially since they have no clue who the perpetrator is, who's behind it. At least that's what they tell us. Russia, China, even Iran could do a cyber attack or, God forbid, an EMP against our entire grid or large portions of our grid and take it down for months. And I know for a fact from David Pine's presentations that we have no defense against certainly a EMP attack. And so for them to be so concerned about this when they do nothing to defend this country against an EMP attack in the upper atmosphere that would completely fry all electronics and computer systems and take down AI and all of it. Maybe this is just for optics. Maybe this is a distraction. Maybe this is to make themselves look good that, hey, we're on top of this. We're investigating. We caught this discrepancy here. We don't know who did it, but we're on the case. Okay. I don't know what caused them to make this public, but it gives me deeper concerns about operations that could be much bigger than this.
All right, let's flip real quick back to Aaron. Aaron, let's go to the European or the EC guidelines versus the Palestinian. Tell me about these real quick. We got limited time, so give me the Cliff Note version.
Well, yeah. I mean, basically, we've been talking about all these nations that have voted for a Palestinian state. And I mentioned the other night, this is just on paper. There's certain criteria based on the European the guidelines that you have to live up to, that the Palestinian Authority, they fail in all of these things that are listed there. You know, for example, you've got there, and I don't know if you want to go through every one of them, Brandon, or at least a couple.
No, we
For
don't have
example,
time, but give me a couple examples.
Well, for example, the first one, that it says that according to the EU guidelines, someone that is going for statehood must be constituted on a democratic basis with respect for the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. Does that sound like the Gaza Strip to you, Brandon?
No.
Leo?
No.
No. And there you've got where on the right-hand side under the Palestinians, no national elections since 2005 or 6. Gaza has been ruled by Hamas after a violent coup. Both PA and Hamas are cited for human rights abuses. Listen, if we just stopped on that first one, that would be enough to put a stop to them taking the next step. So you've got that list there. At this stage, we're not too worried because of the EU guidelines. But here's the thing. Will the EU live up to them? Will they make exceptions for the Palestinian people? And it's highly likely that they may well do so. So there are still areas for concern.
Indeed, there are. All right, guys, hold right there. What a busy news day. So much going on in the Middle East. Then we have breaking news before we go in the air about 800 generals and admirals being called up. We have the discussions with the Russian ambassador warning that World War III will start if NATO shoots down any Russian planes. We have the Russian foreign minister saying basically NATO's declared war on my country. All right, we'll be back on tonight, 7:30 Central, Brandon House Live. We're going to try to get Colonel Rob Manus and others. In the meantime, I do hope you will visit leoholman.substack.com, leoholman.substack.com. Also, Aaron's website is lighttothenationsministry.com. He's also brought to you by our foundation, our reporter on the ground in Israel, brought to you by our foundation. So thank you for your support so we can support him to stay there and be there and report. Worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Now remember, Jim Schneider comes up on the VCY America Radio Network on over 100 outlets as well for crosstalk right now on this terrestrial station or at vcy.org. Take care. And we're back with WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, and our audience here on Worldview Tube. Leo, while Aaron was talking, were you able to find any new information on this fluid story about World War III?
No, but it just seems like the cauldron is bubbling over, Brandon. I don't want people to get the wrong impression that I'm predicting or thinking World War III is going to break out tomorrow, but somebody needs to get us off this escalator. You've got threats coming from both ways. You can trace the threats back as to where they started if you want, but I think the bigger point is nobody seeing on either the Russian or the American side is at this point, each side, each party is too heavily invested, okay, in this ramp up, this military escalation. It started over Ukraine. It actually started in 2014, not 2022, as we're told. If anyone wants to dig into that, let me know. I've got all the receipts. NATO actually started provoking Russia in 2014 with the Maidan Revolution, and it's been heating up ever since. The West built this huge army on Ukrainian territory. It's now using the army. It's feeding weapons bigger and more sophisticated all the time. Zelensky is now bragging about getting some new secret weapons from the West. And that the Russians need to build some more bomb shelters. Nothing good can come from this. Nothing. If we do not get off the escalator and continue down the current path, there will be nothing but losers. Losers in Russia, losers in Europe, losers in the United States. President Trump talks about this big, beautiful ocean that surrounds the United States. And so we're not, quite as in danger as the Europeans are when it comes to the, war with Russia. Wrong. Oreshnik super hypersonic missiles do not stop at the ocean. Okay.
But
they
what
can
about,
come to United States just as well as Europe.
What about Trump calling out the European leaders yesterday for buying oil from Russia? I mean, this is so weird. They're poking the bear while they still buy oil from the bear.
Correct. You would think that the Europeans would be the first ones to heed President Trump's demands to stop buying Russian oil. They are like this close ally of Washington. If he can't get them to stop buying Russian oil, however, some of it may be Hungary, Romania, some of these countries that are not like the backbone of the EU. I don't think the UK is buying Russian oil. I don't think France is buying Russian oil. It is these border countries and some of the other peripheral EU, NATO countries. But if President Trump can't get them to stop buying Russian oil, how does he think he's going to get China and India to stop buying Russian oil? There's going to have to be some kind of major financial giveaway, major financial incentive sent to those countries from Washington, compliments of us, the U.S. taxpayer, to get them to stop buying Russian oil. Okay, let's get that straight right now. So we will end up being the losers if China and India stop buying Russian oil, because they'll have to buy it at a higher price and probably subsidized by the U.S. taxpayer. So, let's hope this strategy is not successful, because if it is, Russia will feel completely isolated, completely cut off. Now, I get the other side. Their argument is if you cut off the Russian oil, Putin won't have money to fuel his military, and he'll come to the negotiation table and end this war with Ukraine and give Ukraine everything it wants, including the Crimean Peninsula and everything. Sorry, folks, you don't understand Russia if you believe that.
Yeah.
Russia will defend its interests.
Is the Turkish president, is he at the White House today? Does anyone know? He is?
Yes.
All right.
So
this is a new clip. This is not an old clip. Listen to what President Trump just said to the president of Turkey's face.
Of Turkey. Unfairly, as it turns out. Rigged election. He knows about rigged elections better than anybody. But when I was in exile, we were still friends. That's always a good way to find out, test of friendship. But
the facial expression of Erdogan didn't even change. And
was he saying that as a friend? Or
no, he was saying he knows about fake elections because he's rigged them over there for his own getting back into power.
That, but was he saying it to Erdogan as like joking as a friend, or was he poking the bear?
I think he's poking him.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that's great. Let's upset Russia, Turkey, Iran, Venezuela. Who else can we upset and pick a fight with right now?
India.
China? India.
Let me tell you, Brett, Jolani has been, I think he still is in Washington, the leader of Syria. And let me tell you, I've just finished reading you got to go.
We got to go. We'll do it tomorrow. Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care.
Thank you.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries,